I'm Callum Bishop, 34, the oldest son, and this morning, no one said my name. The yacht was docked just off the Amalfi coast, the sun breaking over the cliffs like honey melting down gold. The deck was already loud with laughter and clinking mimosas. My younger brother, Liam, was flexing for a GoPro while Dad coached his backswing with an imaginary golf club, and Mom waved over the brunch steward with a charming "Grazie amore," as if she'd grown up in Tuscany. Not a single eye turned to me, not even a nod, not even a glance. The morning table was set with fresh melon slices, smoked salmon, and embossed napkins folded like miniature yachts. My place was not set. I stood at the edge of the upper deck, holding a mug of lukewarm coffee I'd poured for myself downstairs. No one noticed I hadn't come up with the rest. No one asked where I was. There was a brief, flickering pause in the noise when Aunt Elise declared, "So Liam, how does it feel to be the baby with a six-pack and a six-figure crypto account?" Everyone laughed. Even Mom chimed in. "Don't forget, he's the only one who remembered to call on my birthday last year." I sipped my coffee slower. Just let the heat hit the roof of my mouth. It wasn't even true. I'd called Mom that morning and sent a gift to her room custom perfume from Paris. She forgot. Or maybe it didn't matter. "Excuse me," I whispered to the passing steward, who wore a crisp navy uniform with silver epaulets. He blinked at me with the polite blankness of someone trained not to recognize class distinctions unless asked to. "I think there's a setting missing at the main table," I said, pointing. He nodded, then hesitated. "I'm sorry, sir. I was told the table was for 12 today. You're Callum Bishop." He checked his tablet, squinted, and then offered a polite, "I'll ask the hostess." I watched him weave toward the captain's hostess, whispering low. She scanned the table, then scanned me. I saw it in her eyes, the split-second judgment. "Tourist staff. Last minute +1. No worries," I said, brushing past. "I'll eat below." I didn't. I didn't want eggs anymore. I just stood near the railing and let the wind slap my shirt against my chest like it was trying to remind me I still had skin. If you've ever been the person standing outside your own celebration, drop a comment or let me know where you're watching from. Hit like or subscribe if family drama ever made you feel invisible too. It wasn't just the missed birthday. It was the tone, the assumption, as if I'd just appeared on this yacht instead of chartering it 6 months in advance, paying a non-refundable deposit that came out of an account no one asked about, organizing the exact itinerary Mom had once circled in a forgotten travel magazine. I paid for all of it. The champagne, the steward's silver epaulets, the lemon-scented hand towels in the guest bathrooms. And they forgot me. "I'm so sorry," a new voice said behind me. I turned. The yacht's captain stood there. Captain D'Ambrosi. Salt and pepper beard, sunburnt neck, hands like he could crack a walnut with 2 fingers. "We were confused about the primary guest," he said gently. "Your name wasn't mentioned once during the morning manifest." "It rarely is," I said. "I understand now. You're the chartering party. Mr. Bishop." He straightened his collar and adjusted his posture, like something clicked. "If it pleases you," he continued, "I can make an announcement during dinner, or adjust seating now." I looked over at the table. My mom was dabbing orange juice off her silk caftan. Liam was showing Dad his new watch. Someone was peeling shrimp like the world was simple. "No," I said. "Let's just keep it quiet. But, yes, I want to hold the conch at dinner. The toast." Captain D'Ambrosi smiled like a man who'd seen family war before. "Of course," he said. "Will you be dining in black tie or island formal?" "Neither," I replied. "Just make sure they're all sitting when I stand." And when I turned back toward the deck, something in the atmosphere shifted. The steward who'd brushed me off earlier stepped to the side, whispering something to the hostess. Her eyebrows shot up, and her gaze dropped. A few other staff cast discreet glances. Someone poured me a drink without being asked. A ripple moved through the space, not loud, not obvious, but present. The kind of ripple that turns a ghost into a name. That night, they'd hear it, the toast, the name, the silence after. Dinner was set for golden hour. The yacht's long mahogany table gleamed under flickering lanterns strung from the awning, each one swaying slightly with the sea's hush. It was meant to feel intimate, exclusive, like a family seated at Olympus. And yet, when I walked up the stairs to the deck, no one looked up. Not even once. Liam was already at the head of the table, legs wide, tan deeper than it had any right to be after 2 days in the sun. His girlfriend, Sienna, perched beside him with a glass of rosé and a face that had been rehearsing polite laughter for a decade. Mom sat opposite, tapping through photos on her phone and pausing now and then to show a filtered memory to Aunt Elise. I scanned the table again. There was a name card next to Sienna, another for Dad, one for Uncle Jeff lactose alert scrawled in bubbly Sharpie. But there was none for me. Again. I didn't say anything. I simply turned, descended the steps, and returned 10 minutes later in a dark navy linen shirt and black slacks. No tie, no show, just clean, sharp silence. Captain D'Ambrosi stood discreetly by the drinks table. When our eyes met, he gave the faintest nod. By the time I reached my seat placed last minute at the far end, opposite Liam's throne, the steward had already set a glass of Sancerre in front of me, this time chilled to perfection. The same steward who had overlooked me that morning now refilled my glass before I touched it. Still, no one noticed. Not even when I tapped my fork gently against the edge of my plate. Not when I smiled through the champagne course. Not even when I made eye contact with Mom and said, "Looks like it's going to be a beautiful night." She blinked, then turned back to Dad, murmuring something about sunsets in Santorini being better. My name didn't surface once. The dinner rolled on stuffed zucchini flowers, scallops with saffron cream. Too many carbs for a family that pretended to care about health. There was laughter, wine, even a birthday shout-out for Cousin Jake's upcoming graduation, despite the fact he wasn't even on the yacht. "We should FaceTime him," Elise yelled. "He's our genius boy." No one FaceTimed me when I got my second master's, or when my company's Series B went public. No one asked how I'd been, if I was seeing someone, if I wanted to share a story. I was background. The yacht might as well have steered itself. And then Captain D'Ambrosi cleared his throat. He stepped forward with a small brass bell and tapped it once. The sound sliced through dessert chatter like a blade through sugar crust. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said in his smooth Italian accent, "we are blessed tonight with fair weather, excellent company, and the privilege of being together." A few murmured toasts rose, a glass clinked somewhere. "But before we retire for the night," he continued, "our chartering guest has asked to say a few words." He turned toward me. No flourish, no drama, just Mr. Bishop. Silence. Every head turned. Liam actually sat back. Sienna blinked. Mom tilted her head with a puzzled half-smile. Dad slowly lowered his glass of bourbon. I stood. "Thanks, Captain," I said, voice even, tone casual. "I'll keep it brief." I held my glass but didn't raise it. I wanted to say thank you to all of you for coming on this trip. When I booked this yacht 6 months ago, I didn't expect everyone to be able to make it. Schedules, conflicts, distance. We all have lives. But I wanted to give us something we'd remember. The pause landed harder than I expected. No one moved. I remembered how Mom once said she dreamed of seeing Positano from the water, How Dad missed Capri in '97 because of that kidney thing. How Liam always said he wanted to tan in style. And Aunt Elise needed something to brag about on Facebook. A few nervous chuckles. Still no one spoke. I booked the yacht. I said again. Eyes locked on Mom now. I planned the itinerary. Prepaid the staff. Covered every bottle on this table, and made sure your favorite desserts were flown in from Rome yesterday morning. Liam's fork hovered, then dropped gently onto porcelain. I glanced at the empty spot on the cake where candles might have gone, and I said, letting the quiet stretch. Today was my birthday. That's when the air truly went still. Mom's lips parted, faintly. Dad glanced toward the steward. Liam opened his mouth, closed it. I didn't say anything earlier, I added, because I wanted to see if anyone remembered. A text, a card, even a joke, anything. No one moved, no one even breathed. So I'll say it for myself. I continued. Happy birthday, Callum. I lifted my glass to growing up unnoticed and paying attention anyway. And then I sat down. The clink of my glass setting down was louder than anyone expected. No one reached for theirs. The steward began to move, hesitated. Then Dad finally broke the silence. Son, I didn't realize. But I was already standing again. No need. Dad. Just enjoy the view. And I walked down the length of the deck, past empty plates and open mouths, past years of being the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who always sent gifts with handwritten notes no one mentioned. Captain D'Ambrosi stepped aside as I passed. He didn't say anything, just placed a hand lightly on my shoulder. That was enough. I stood by the bow, wind thick with salt and twilight. The cliffs of Italy shimmered in the distance, lights just starting to bloom along the hillsides. My birthday came and went without cake, without cards. But the silence I left behind was louder than any toast they could have offered. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay in the narrow berth of the guest suite, though technically it was the owner's cabin, and listened to the sea tapping against the hull. I kept the lights off, just a single sliver of moonlight coming through the porthole and stretching across the wood-paneled floor. Everything smelled like cedar, salt, and citrus oils. The yacht was so quiet, I could hear the water churn gently beyond the glass, like the boat was breathing. No one knocked. No one came down to say anything. At 3:47 a.m., I checked the group chat again. Still no message. No happy birthday sent in panic. No late night. You know we love you. Pity text from Mom. The chat was still filled with photos from earlier. Dad posing shirtless on the jet ski. Liam's six-pack in yet another group shot. Aunt Elise posting a picture of her cocktail with the caption, "Living my best MILF life." I turned the screen face down and stared into the dark. The thing about being forgotten is it doesn't explode. It seeps. Quietly. Slowly. Like ink dropped into water. You don't even realize how much of it you've swallowed until it's too late to speak. At 6:10 a.m., I slipped out barefoot. The crew had just begun to stir clinks from the galley, a mop squeaking gently on the upper deck. Faint whispers in Italian. I poured myself a black coffee and took it to the stern where the sun was just starting to break. It was stunning. Gold spilling over blue. The cliffs of Amalfi glowing like warm bronze. I stood at the edge of the deck rail and thought of birthdays past. 7 years old, I got a toy microscope from Dad. He said, "Maybe you'll be the first bishop scientist." 12. They forgot. Said they were in the middle of a move. 15. Mom made a cake. Liam blew out my candles before I had the chance. 21. I celebrated alone in a cheap apartment in Boston, while the rest of them flew to Cancun. Said the tickets were already bought before I told them I couldn't come. 34. This yacht. My gift to them. My silence to me. I finished my coffee and let the cup rest on the railing. Then I heard footsteps behind me. It was Sienna, wrapped in a thin silk robe. No makeup. Her dark hair tied back in a messy bun that actually suited her more than any of the curated Instagram shots she'd posted yesterday. "I couldn't sleep," she said quietly. I didn't answer, just nodded toward the water. She stood next to me, her toes curling slightly over the edge of the deck. "That was something," she said after a long silence. "What you did last night. Didn't mean to start a war." She looked at me sideways. "Callum, you didn't start anything. You just held up a mirror." I wanted to believe that, but she kept going. "They've always done that. You know, pretend like you're not there because you make them uncomfortable." I turned to her. "I don't make anyone uncomfortable." "Yes, you do," she said. "You're the one they can't label. You don't brag like Liam. You don't drink too much like Jeff. And you don't need validation. That scares people who only survive on noise." I almost laughed. It was the most I'd ever heard her say that wasn't filtered or softly sponsored. She continued. "When Liam brought me home that first Thanksgiving, I asked him what you did. He just said, 'Oh, Callum. He's smart, I guess. Always in his head. Good with numbers. Like you were a filing cabinet.'" I looked back toward the water. "Nice to know I've got fans." Sienna smiled faintly, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I'm just saying you didn't deserve that. Any of it." "Yeah. Well," I said, "some things you outgrow, like needing to be clapped for every time you breathe." She stepped back slightly, then leaned on the railing. "They're scrambling. By the way," she added, "your mom's up. She told the steward to prepare a birthday brunch. Like, full setup. Cake included." "Of course." She looked wrecked. "Kept saying she thought your birthday was next week. She says that every year." Sienna turned, arms crossed now, chilled despite the sun. "Are you going to show up to the brunch?" I shrugged. "Maybe. They're trying. Callum. Badly. But still. And I'm tired. Sienna. Tired of being the one who pays, organizes, remembers. I was 12 when I first made my own birthday breakfast, wrote a note to myself and signed it, 'Love, Mom,' because I wanted to feel like someone cared." Her mouth fell open slightly. "God." I didn't flinch. I just stared at the horizon. "You know what I wanted this year?" I asked. "What?" "Just one of them. Just one to pull me aside, even in passing, and say, 'Hey, we're proud of you. We see you.' Not for the money. Not for the boat. For me." Sienna didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence said enough. I left her standing there and went below deck. I showered slowly, changed into a clean shirt, and stared at my own reflection in the mirror. I looked like my father, a little leaner, a little more tired around the eyes. Same hairline, same mouth when disappointed. When I came up to the dining deck again, the table was set. A huge display of exotic fruit, pastries stacked high on gold tiers, and a birthday cake with "Happy Birthday Callum" piped in ornate icing. A violinist was playing softly. A few seagulls circled the mast. The mood was sunny, desperate. Everyone was seated. Mom, Dad, Liam, Elise, Uncle Jeff waiting for me like I'd been late to my own funeral. I walked to the table, pulled out a chair, and sat without speaking. Mom reached across and took my hand. "I'm sorry, honey," she said. Her voice trembled. I don't have an excuse. I really don't." I looked at her hand on mine. Cold fingers, light pink nail polish, slight tremor in her thumb. "I know," I said quietly. Liam cleared his throat. "Hey, bro. I mean, if you'd said something, you'd have remembered. He froze. No, he admitted. Probably not. Everyone laughed. It was the kind of laugh that said, "We don't know how to deal with this, so let's laugh until it feels normal." I looked at the cake, then I looked up at all of them. "Let's eat," I said. And they did. For the first time in years, they listened while I talked about my work. I didn't offer numbers or figures. I told stories, simple ones. A client who cried after we helped her save her home. A former intern who bought his mom a car. How I took a walk alone through Kyoto and cried when I saw the falling cherry blossoms. They didn't interrupt. They didn't look away. They didn't forget, at least. Not for that hour. And when the violinist played Happy Birthday, and the steward lit the candles, and everyone sang softly in mismatched keys, I let it happen. I let it happen even though it was late, even though it was forced, even though the icing was starting to melt. Because maybe being seen doesn't always come when you need it, but sometimes you have to let it land anyway. The cake tasted like someone had tried too hard. Rich ganache layered over too sweet sponge, piped with precision and a faint bitterness I couldn't place. Everyone claimed it was delicious, divine, the best they'd had in years, but no one finished their slice, except me. I ate mine slowly, deliberately, down to the last bite, scraping the edge of the plate just to hear the sound. Mom kept glancing at me with a rehearsed smile that never reached her eyes. Dad looked exhausted, like someone who wanted to skip to the part where everything was fine again. Liam tapped his fork against his glass, and I braced for another awkward apology. "Hey," he said, standing. "I just want to say something." Sienna looked at him warily. He cleared his throat. "Callum's been doing a lot behind the scenes. I mean, obviously, this whole trip wouldn't have happened without him. And yeah, we screwed up. Big time. So, thanks, man, for everything." There was a round of polite clapping. Aunt Elise even whistled, which felt like it belonged at a barbecue, not a luxury yacht brunch. "Also," Liam added with a grin, "I'm making you a cocktail tonight. My famous mango basil spritz, birthday edition." I nodded, looking forward to it. But I wasn't. Not really. The moment passed too easily, too rehearsed, as if they'd already moved on while I was still walking backward through all the years I'd tried to earn that kind of recognition. And now that they'd said thank you once they believed we were good, settled, balanced. But what they didn't understand was that I hadn't done any of this for gratitude. I'd done it because I knew, deep down, they wouldn't. The rest of the day blurred in golden humidity. We docked briefly in Capri, the crew lowering the dinghy for those who wanted to shop. I stayed aboard. Mom brought back a linen shirt she said looked like me. It didn't. Too loud. Too yellow. But I thanked her anyway. That night, after dinner, the yacht's crew arranged a wine tasting on the lower deck. Candles floated in glass bowls along the railing, and a sommelier from Naples explained every bottle in slow, melodic English. Everyone loosened up. Uncle Jeff asked if wine had calories. Liam made a joke about antioxidants being an excuse to drink at breakfast. And I just watched. Not resentful. Not angry anymore. Just watching. At some point, Dad wandered over with a glass of red and sat beside me. "You always liked the quiet." "Huh," he said. I nodded. He stared into his wine like it held answers. I should have remembered. I didn't respond. I mean, hell, we were in the same delivery room, he added, attempting a laugh. "You screamed like a damn trumpet the second you came out." "Sounds accurate." He sighed. "We don't mean to leave you out, son. We're just loud people. Liam, Elise, the whole crew. You've always been the one who doesn't shout to be heard. That doesn't mean I want to be forgotten. He nodded. Slowly. You're right. That was it. No big confession. No breakdown. Just a man who realized, a little too late, that he didn't know his son. Still, we sat there for a while. No pressure. Just two figures by candlelight. The sea murmuring beneath us. Eventually, he clapped me on the back and said, "We're proud of you, even if we're not good at saying it." And that landed. It didn't fix everything, but it made something inside me relax, like a taut line finally going slack. The last few days of the cruise settled into a quiet rhythm. No more theatrics, no more speeches. Everyone softened, like the weight of the yacht itself had reminded them we weren't immortal. We took turns choosing the music. We ate breakfast together. No one checked their phones during meals, not even Liam. Sienna came to sit beside me often, not flirting, not performing, just present. "I think they're trying," she said once, when we both sat on deck chairs staring at the open blue. "They are," I agreed. "In their own way. Do you forgive them?" I thought about that. "I'm not sure it's about forgiveness," I said. "I think it's about expectation." She tilted her head. "You stop expecting them to change," I explained. "You start understanding their limits, and then you choose how close you want to stand to them without getting burned." She nodded. Slowly. "I don't hate them," I added, "but I'm not going to set myself on fire to keep them warm anymore." She didn't say anything after that, just took my hand and held it for a minute. Soft, silent, enough. On the final night, Captain D'Ambrosi invited me to the bridge. The stars were out in full scatter, and the coastline was a ribbon of gold in the dark. "Beautiful view," I said. He smiled. "You should come up here more often. Most people stay down with the music. I prefer seeing where we're going." He glanced at me. "And do you know where you're going next?" That caught me off guard. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe that's good." He said, "You've spent so long steering other people. Maybe it's time you let yourself drift. A little." The sea was black and endless. And for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel threatening. It felt honest. "Thank you," I said. He just nodded and turned back to the controls. That night, I packed slowly, each item folded with care, placed back into the suitcase I'd brought with more anticipation than I'd ever admit. As I zipped the final compartment, I found the envelope, cream-colored, heavy, tucked between shirts like it had been slipped in quietly. No name, just one line. Handwritten, I remembered. I just didn't know how to say it. "Mom." There was a photo inside. I hadn't seen it in years. Me, age 9, wearing a paper crown, frosting on my cheek, holding a Lego spaceship. Mom behind me, hands on my shoulders, smiling like I'd built the real thing. I stared at it for a long time. Then I folded the photo back into the envelope, slipped it into the inside pocket of my blazer, and sat for a while on the edge of the bed. Not angry, not triumphant, just still. I didn't need a parade. I didn't need a chant or a banner. But I needed that picture. I needed to know that once, just once, I was the center of something, even if it was small, even if it didn't last. We disembarked at Sorrento just after dawn. The yacht crew lined up at the dock like a final curtain call, polished, professional, already on to the next guests in their minds. Captain D'Ambrosi gave me a firm handshake, the kind that didn't need words, and I nodded back in quiet gratitude. The rest of the family filed out in waves, lugging designer bags, sunburned, hungover, smiling like nothing had ever gone wrong. Liam tossed his duffel into the black van waiting for him and Sienna. Mom adjusted her sunglasses with practiced flair and kissed the crew goodbye like old friends. Dad was on the phone within seconds, talking about flights, meetings, someone's real estate investment in Nice. No one mentioned the birthday again. Not directly, but something had changed. Not loudly. Just changed. As we all climbed into separate cars, different destinations, different versions of the same trip, Mom leaned into my window just before her door closed. "I meant what I wrote," she said softly. I get overwhelmed." I didn't reply. I just held her gaze long enough for her to see I wasn't angry anymore, maybe not even disappointed. Just done keeping score. She nodded, almost bowed her head, and then the door shut. I watched their car pull away, taillights flickering through the early morning fog. I didn't move for a long time. The driver cleared his throat eventually. "Waiting." "Airport?" he asked. "No," I said. "Hotel." I checked into a quiet cliffside hotel in Ravello, a solo room with a view so wide it made me dizzy the first night. No itinerary, no family, just silence, the hum of distant mopeds, and the sound of my own thoughts uninterrupted for the first time in days. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't answer emails. I didn't even check the group chat again. I knew what would be there: beach selfies, thank yous that felt late. Maybe a meme from Liam pretending everything was fine again. Instead, I walked. Down steep stone steps that smelled of basil and old rain, through archways painted in bougainvillea, past shops selling hand-painted ceramics I didn't need but admired anyway. In a tiny piazza near a fountain, I found a cafe with 6 tables and a sleepy orange cat that guarded the register. I went every morning. The owner never asked questions, just brought espresso and a pastry and let me sit as long as I wanted. And I started to feel something I hadn't in a long time. Myself. Not the version of me curated to avoid family conflict, not the achiever, not the responsible one, just Callum, the kid who once liked astronomy, who used to stay up sketching buildings with a ruler and a dream, who took care of everyone else because no one asked if he needed it first. On the 3rd day, Sienna messaged me. No emoji, no small talk, just you still in Italy. I stared at the screen a long time before replying. "Yeah, Ravello. I'm in Naples. Can I come?" I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what I wanted, but I typed, "Sure." 3 hours later, she was there, windblown, wearing jeans and an oversized jacket she probably borrowed from Liam. Her suitcase was scuffed, her hair tied up. No gloss, no filters. She looked like someone who'd shed a costume. We didn't hug, we just walked. She told me she'd left Liam in Rome. He said I needed space. She murmured, but I think he just didn't want to explain me not showing up in the next selfie. We ended up at the cafe. The cat still guarded the register like a mafia don. Sienna sat across from me, fingers curled around the coffee cup like it was warmer than it was. "I've never seen you like this," she said after a while. "Like what?" "Still. Quiet. Honest." I raised an eyebrow. "I've always been honest. Not with yourself." That one stung a little. But she wasn't wrong. We talked for hours. About nothing. About everything. She told me she used to write poetry in high school, that she wanted to study marine biology but got distracted by likes and lip filler, that Liam made her laugh but never asked what scared her. I told her I used to want to be an architect, that I still had sketches tucked in drawers, that I sometimes envied people who didn't care so much. When we walked back to the hotel, she didn't ask to stay. I didn't offer. It wasn't like that. But before she left, she turned to me in the hallway. "You know what the worst part of being invisible is?" she asked. "What you start thinking maybe it's your fault." And then she kissed me on the cheek light. Platonic. final, and walked away. I didn't try to stop her. I just stood there until her footsteps disappeared. Later that night, I walked out onto the hotel terrace. The moon was huge, low, yellow like old bone. The sea stretched beyond it, quiet and forgiving. I pulled the envelope from my jacket pocket and took the photo out again. Me with the paper crown, Mom behind me, that smile. I stared at it for a long time, then turned it over. Nothing on the back, no date, no note, just blank. I thought about writing something, a caption, a truth, but I didn't. Instead, I slid the photo into my notebook, the same one I'd bought in Florence years ago, the one I never wrote in because I didn't think I had anything to say that mattered. I opened to the first page, and I wrote 34 today. They forgot again. But the sea didn't. The stars didn't. I didn't. Then I closed the notebook and exhaled. Not sad, not bitter, just full. The kind of full that comes after starving for too long and finally eating something warm. I didn't know what would happen next back home. With the family. With Sienna. With all the parts of me I had left out of the photos. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was chasing something, or proving anything, or waiting for someone to clap. I was just here, in Italy, in my own life, in my own name, Callum Bishop. Not the forgotten son, not the executor, just a man, sitting beneath the moon, breathing, remembering himself. I flew home a week later. No fanfare, no waiting arms at the terminal, just the quiet hiss of arrivals and the smell of old carpet and too many perfume kiosks. My apartment still smelled like lavender from the candle I'd forgotten to blow out properly. The fridge was empty. The plants looked like they'd given up waiting. I unpacked slowly. Each item I folded back into place felt like I was putting part of myself back on a shelf. The linen shirt still carried the salt of the Mediterranean. The blazer still held the envelope with Mom's photo, pressed like a leaf between old paper and newer skin. I placed the envelope on the desk, left it unopened. I didn't need to look at it again. I sat for a while, just breathing in the silence. No voices, no interruptions. Just the sound of the city far below, muffled like a memory I hadn't decided whether to keep. Then I opened my laptop, and I deleted the family group chat. No drama, no warning, just a quiet click, and it was gone. If they noticed, no one said anything, or maybe they assumed it was a glitch, or maybe, finally, they understood. The next day, I went back to the office. They clapped when I entered. The interns who looked like they were born last week. The project managers who leaned on me like scaffolding. The CEO who greeted me with a handshake 2 seconds longer than it needed to be. "Welcome back, Mr. Bishop," she said. "Thanks," I replied. "Let's get back to work." And we did. But something in me had shifted. I didn't rush. I didn't over-explain. I didn't stay an extra 3 hours to fix someone else's mistake. I just worked, efficiently, quietly, fully present. They noticed. People who had never really seen me now started asking things like, "Do you need anything?" and "Want to grab lunch?" I wasn't suddenly popular. Just real. No longer performing competence as a mask for invisibility. I even started sketching again, late at night, when the city fell into that velvet hush only found between 2 and 4. I pulled out old tracing paper, sharpened pencils I hadn't used in years, and let my hands remember the shapes they'd once loved. Curves, weight, silence rendered in shadow and form. I wasn't designing for anyone. No clients, no deadlines, just lines that meant something to me. 2 weeks later, an envelope came in the mail, cream-colored, familiar, no stamp, no return address. Inside was a photograph, a different one this time. Me and Liam, age 6 and 4, side by side in Halloween. Costumes him as a pirate, me as a robot made of cardboard boxes. The caption on the back, written in Mom's old cursive, read, "You always wanted to build things that lasted. You still do. Mom." No note, no message, just that. I didn't call her. I didn't text back. But I placed the photo beside the other one, in the same notebook, same envelope. And for the first time in years, I believed she might be trying in her own broken way. Not perfectly, not quickly, but maybe honestly. Life rolled on. I didn't host Christmas that year. No one asked me to. I think they knew better. They sent a group selfie from Liam's condo, everyone in matching pajamas, raising mugs of cocoa like a scene from a catalog. I didn't open it right away. When I finally did, I smiled. Not because I missed them, but because I didn't. Not in the same way. I was no longer holding a seat for myself at their table. I had built my own. Spring brought warmth too early. The air felt like July and April, and people kept saying things like global warming and "isn't it beautiful though" with the same breath. I took a weekend trip to the coast alone. I left my phone on airplane mode the entire time. I walked barefoot on cold sand. I ate lunch with a book. I didn't document a single moment. No captions, no filters, no "wish you were here." Just me. With myself. And that was enough. One afternoon, a letter came. Real paper. Blue ink. No perfume. No embellishment. Just a plain white envelope and 5 lines of handwriting. "Happy early birthday." This time I remembered. I booked a table for 2. Just you and me. No one else. It was signed. Mom. Dinner was at a small French bistro tucked behind a bookstore. I almost didn't go. But I did. Not for her. For the boy with frosting on his cheek and a cardboard crown who'd waited too long for someone to show up for him. She was already seated when I arrived. Hair pulled back. A red scarf. A nervous smile that made her look younger. She stood when she saw me, didn't hug me, didn't apologize. Just said, "Thank you for coming." We talked like old friends who hadn't seen each other in years. Carefully, gently. She asked about work, about my apartment, about whether I was still drinking too much coffee. I asked about her garden, her painting, if she was still using those awful purple sunglasses. We laughed, not loudly, but truly. And when dessert came, she reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope. "You don't have to open it now," she said. "I will," I said. Inside was a photo. Me again. Maybe age 16. Sitting alone at a piano, hands hovering over keys, eyes closed. I'd forgotten that moment. But she hadn't. The caption on the back read, "You were always music even when no one was listening." This time, I didn't look away. I said, "Thank you." She nodded. Her eyes were glassy, but she didn't cry. Neither did I. We just sat there, 2 people trying to relearn a language we never spoke well. And it was enough. The next morning, I took the envelope home, added it to the notebook, and finally flipped to the last page. I wrote, "Sometimes they remember, sometimes they don't. But I always will." I closed the book, set it on the shelf, and went for a walk. No destination, no performance, just steps, just breath, just me. The summer came in slow, like it was testing me. I didn't book a vacation. No cruises, no villas, no gestures. For once, I didn't feel the need to orchestrate something to prove I was present. Instead, I let the season unfold around me. Morning coffees on the balcony, long walks after dark. I even started talking to strangers again, small talk with baristas, nods to the man who walked his three-legged dog past my apartment every day at 5:30 p.m. A kind of soft belonging returned. The kind you don't realize you missed until it's there again. My therapist. Yes. I started seeing one said something in late June that stuck with me. You've spent your life trying to be undeniable to people who were never really looking. I didn't answer her at the time, just stared at a sunbeam on the floor, thinking about all the effort, the planning, the generosity I had offered as currency for love. I was tired of being undeniable. I wanted to be real. Quietly. In July, I got an unexpected call, unknown number, no voicemail. Then a message came through 10 minutes later. Hey, it's Sienna. Just wondering how you're doing. I stared at the screen for a long time. I hadn't thought about her much, not in a dramatic, aching way. Just in flashes her fingers around a coffee cup. Her voice when it got low and honest, the way she once held my hand on the deck and didn't let go too fast. I replied, I'm okay. And you? She wrote back almost immediately. Better now. I left him. It was overdue. I didn't ask for details. She didn't offer any. We texted back and forth for a week. Light stuff. Music. What we were reading. What cities felt loneliest. I told her I'd been sketching again. She sent a voice note saying, that makes me happy. Weirdly. Eventually, she asked if I wanted to meet up. Just coffee. I said yes. Not because I had expectations, but because the silence between us had never felt forced. We met in a bookstore cafe downtown. She looked different, less curated, more undone. Hair loose, sweatshirt oversized, eyes clearer. I felt more at ease with her than I had with most people lately. I miss talking to you, she said. I miss being talked to like a person. I replied. She smiled, and for the first time since the yacht, it didn't feel like something with an edge. We sat for 2 hours, then 3. It was easy. It didn't need to be anything more than that. When we parted, she kissed me on the cheek again. Same spot, but this time, it lingered. No words, just breath. That night, I didn't open the notebook. I didn't need to write it down. It had already lived inside me. In August, I turned 35. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't host a dinner. I took the day off work, went to a museum I hadn't visited since college, and spent 2 hours staring at a single sculpture. It was imperfect marble chipped, features slightly asymmetrical, but it moved me in a way nothing had in months. Something about its quiet, weathered stillness. Something about how it wasn't trying to be loved just to exist. On my way out, I bought a small print of it, hung it in my apartment. When people asked what it was, I said, it reminds me of something I survived. I didn't explain. They didn't need to know. That fall, Mom called again, not for anything big, just a checking-in type of call. We talked about the weather, the neighbor's dog, the new book she was trying to read but kept falling asleep during. She didn't bring up the yacht. She didn't bring up the birthday. And I didn't need her to. Before we hung up, she said, you know I love you. Right. I paused. Yes. I said, I know. I meant it. And I think, for once, she believed I did. The holidays approached like a tide I didn't want to resist. The family texted about a cabin in Colorado, snow, board games, something about a cocoa bar and matching slippers. I didn't reply. Not right away. I waited a few days, then I sent a voice note. Thanks for the invite. I'm going to sit this one out. Hope you all have a great time. Simple, direct, kind, no drama, no explanation. And to my surprise, Mom responded, Understood. We'll miss you. Let's do dinner when you're ready. Liam even added, totally get it. Bro. Ski for me. They were trying again. Or maybe they were just learning to let me decide what mattered. Either way, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. Sienna and I met a few more times. Nothing defined. Nothing rushed. She told me she was applying to a graduate program in marine conservation. I told her I was finally considering taking a sabbatical. Maybe go somewhere quiet. Somewhere I didn't have to prove myself. She said, let me know if you find that place. I might follow. I didn't say anything, but her words stayed with me. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere free. New Year's Eve arrived with rain. I stayed in. No countdown, no party, no resolutions, just a cup of tea and the notebook in my lap. I opened it to a blank page. Wrote, not everyone will clap when you arrive. Not everyone will notice you're gone, but some part of you must stay soft anyway. Not for them. For you. Then I closed it. No need to finish the sentence. I had already said enough. And I was still here. The next spring. I disappeared. Not in the dramatic sense. I didn't quit my job or vanish without a trace. I submitted a formal sabbatical request approved in under 48 hours. I closed out projects. Delegated cleanly. No one resisted. Some even applauded. I think I'd built such a fortress of competence around me that when I finally stepped back, they realized they could stand on their own too. I rented a cottage in the Scottish Highlands, far from the coastlines of Amalfi, far from rooftop offices and dinner parties with linen napkins. It sat on the edge of a loch, surrounded by pine and fog, with more silence than I'd had in years. One road in, one road out. The kind of place where the weather decided your mood. And the sheep didn't care who you were back home. No one knew where I went, except Sienna. She didn't come with me, but she didn't ask me not to go either. She just said, find what's real again, and kissed me once. Slow and quiet. Like she was sending me off instead of holding me back. I packed light. One suitcase, one notebook, no laptop. And I went. The first few days, I struggled with the stillness. No alarms, no meetings, no passive-aggressive family text threads. Just long walks in wool socks and the occasional buzz of the kettle. I watched the way fog moved across the lake like a living thing. I stared out the window for hours, not even thinking, just witnessing. It felt like waking up after years of dreaming someone else's life. I started building things again. Not buildings, not business plans, small things. A table from driftwood, a bench from discarded planks. I cut and sanded and bled a little. My hands forgot how to blister. My shoulders ached in ways the gym never gave me, but it felt good, real. No audience, no approval, just weight, resistance, form. I made mistakes, joints that didn't fit, nails bent at ugly angles, but I left them there. Imperfection was part of the honesty. Each piece I built stayed on the property, scattered like soft markers of time passing. One night, while sanding a chair leg, I realized something that stopped me mid-stroke. I had nothing to prove anymore. Not to Mom, not to Liam, not even to myself. I was enough. Not because I succeeded, not because I endured, just because I was still here, alive, not needing to be remembered to exist. The days passed unmeasured. I stopped checking the date. I stopped counting how long I'd been away. I wrote in the notebook every morning, not as performance, not to track progress, just to listen, to the thoughts that only show up when no one's watching. Some pages were poems, others were fragments. One just said, I am not a product of who failed to see me. I am a witness to my own becoming. I didn't write that for anyone, Didn't even reread it. I just let it fall into the pages like rain through leaves. In mid-April, I received a letter. No return address. Simple handwriting. Inside, just a folded piece of paper. We didn't know how to hold you, but we're learning. Thank you for showing us what presence really looks like. Mom. No photos this time. No guilt. Just words. Sincere. Late. But not empty. I folded the letter and placed it in the notebook. Closed the cover gently. Not with finality, but with peace. Sienna came in May. She didn't warn me. Just texted from the village 10 miles away if you've got tea and a blanket. I'm on my way. I laughed. For the first time in weeks. I laughed out loud. When she arrived, windblown and wearing boots too big for her, I opened the door like I'd been expecting her the whole time. We didn't talk much that first night. She curled on the bench I built, legs tucked under her, sipping from a chipped mug I hadn't planned to share with anyone. The fire cracked between us. I didn't come here for you, she said after a long silence. I came here for me, but I'm glad you're here. I nodded. That's the best reason. We didn't touch. We didn't label anything. Just shared the space. And that was enough. By summer, I knew it was time to leave. Not because I was running, not because I was empty again, but because I was full, ready to live forward instead of backward. I packed the same suitcase, left the furniture I built behind, even left the notebook on the shelf, between a small collection of local poetry and a guide to edible plants. Someone else would find it someday. Maybe they'd read it. Maybe not. Didn't matter. I had already lived it. I took a final walk around the loch before dawn. The mist was thick, but I knew the path by now. I whispered a quiet thank you into the trees. No one heard it. That was the point. Some goodbyes don't need witnesses. Back in the city, I moved slower, didn't fill my calendar, didn't attend every event. I had a smaller circle now, but it was mine. Sienna and I met for dinner once a week. Sometimes we talked about the past. Sometimes we just sat and watched people pass. No declarations, no future mapped in stone, just presence, and the quiet, mutual knowing that something had shifted in both of us. On the night before my next birthday, I received a box. No label. Inside was a photo album. Not digital, not sleek. An old-fashioned cloth-bound album with thick pages and handwritten captions. The first photo, me at age 7, holding a toy boat. The title beneath it. You always knew where the water was. Every page after that was a memory someone else had remembered for me. Photos from birthdays I thought they'd forgotten. Notes from Mom, Dad, even Liam. Apologies. Confessions. Truths. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't polished. But it was real. I sat on the floor for an hour, turning each page like it mattered. When I closed the album, I didn't cry. I didn't ache. I just whispered, "Thank you," and meant it. Not because I needed them to fix the past, but because I was no longer carrying it. That night, I slept with the windows open. City noise hummed like distant water. Somewhere outside, a siren passed. A child laughed. A car door slammed. Life was still loud, but inside I was still. Still here. Still me. Still enough.